Ever since the beginning of Black Clover, us as fans have been wondering, what are the origins of Asta and Yuno? Now of course, we know they were both abandoned at the church on the same day. We want to know why, who left them there, and who are their parents, are they related at all, and probably most importantly of all, why was Asta born without mana? Now I have a theory that can explain all of this. Who are Asta and Yuno's parents, and why Asta has no mana? I do believe there are enough context clues and lore that can explain this, but I'll have to venture into the manga for spoilers to explain this. So if you are an anime only, you might want to click away, or you can jump the gun and just watch this video. But guys, read the damn manga. Seriously, you can go to Viz, pay $2 a month and have access to all of Black Clover's chapters, and many other great manga like Naruto and One Piece and more. This isn't a sponsorship though, but I do think the manga is far greater than the anime, and the manga should be consumed. But if you do enjoy this video, guys, please do leave a like. If you agree with me, comment down below. And also, if you want me to talk about other theories in Black Clover, let me know. I think my next theory video that I'm working on will have to do with Nero and who he is. It is one that I have been working on for a while. Also, guys, subscribe and turn on notifications to be notified every time I upload a Black Clover video. Now the crux of this theory begins in the manga, when it shows a flashback to the time the first Wizard King met the King of the Elves, Licht. This happens when the Wizard King's sister Tetsuya accidentally uses her wind magic and soars out of the castle, and her magic grows out of control. The Wizard King chased after his sister to save her, and both Licht, using his sword magic, and the first Wizard King, using his light magic, managed to save her. Licht catches the Wizard King's sister, Tetsuya, in his arms. The Wizard King questions what Tetsuya was doing, but it is eventually revealed that both the Wizard King and Elf King Licht had 4-leaf clover grimoires. This made an instant connection between the two, and the Wizard King quickly made friends with the elves. Eventually, the Wizard King talks of peace between the humans and the elves, and this promise of sorts is made through the marriage of Tetsuya and Licht. A blood pact as their child would be the symbol of peace between the two tribes. Now, this is kind of weird because Tetsuya was only 14 at the time, as you get your grimoire at 15, and she was going to get it the day after the wedding. But this does take place way back, a long time ago, when this was a lot more normal, and I mean, it's already sort of weird as this is two different species having a baby. Oh well, but this means that the Wizard King's sister was pregnant with a half-elf, half-human hybrid, but before Tetsuya could give birth to this child, the elves were seemingly betrayed by the Wizard King and the humans, with all the elves, including Tetsuya, being slaughtered. Now I made a separate theory video for who really betrayed the elves and how they were slaughtered. That'll be linked in the description below. Now while the elves were slaughtered though, Licht used forbidden magic that caused all the elves to be reincarnated. So even though the elves were slaughtered centuries before Asta and Yuno were born, the reincarnation magic still makes it possible for them to be the children of Licht and Tetsuya, and that the human bodies of Asta and Yuno were meant to be possessed at some point by the real souls of Asta and Yuno. So let's make this sort of a family tree. We have Licht, who marries Tetsuya, a wind mage who is royalty, and whose brother was likely the king at the time due to his crown when he fought the demon, and he would become the first Wizard King after the defeat of the demon that nearly destroyed the country. Now let's first pull up Yuno and see what we can take from this. Could he be the possible child of Tetsuya and Licht? It actually seems extremely likely, as he would take things from both his father and his mother. Yuno has a 4-leaf clover grimoire and wind magic. You could also draw the 4-leaf clover comparison to his uncle, the first Wizard King. So his father had a 4-leaf clover grimoire, his uncle had a 4-leaf clover grimoire, and he has wind magic that his mother had. Not only this, but it is extremely likely that Tetsuya also had the wind spirit self back then, because her magic was extremely powerful when she needed to be saving. It is unlikely that a 14-year-old wind mage without a grimoire could create a wind spell so fast and powerful that it carried her from the castle all the way to the Forsaken Realm where the elves resided. It is probable that she actually was aided by Sylph and may have snuck out of the castle to practice with her. So, Yuno has the 4-leaf clover grimoire, which his brother and uncle possessed, albeit different book, wind magic of his mother, and also the wind spirit self of his mother. Now what about looks? Let's compare both Tetsuya and Licht with Yuno and see if he looks like a possible reproduction of the two, and also compare him to the Wizard King to see if they look at all related in terms of looks. Just comparing facial structures between Yuno and Licht, they have the same pointy chin. In fact, let's just put these two faces right next to each other Yuno totally looks like he could be related to Licht. The first Wizard King also has a pointy chin, and Tetya also has a pointy chin, but is a bit more rounded out. As for eye color, Yuno takes the same exact eye color as Licht. It seems that Yuno has taken the body type of his potential father as well, being taller and more slender, whereas the Wizard King and Tetya are of shorter stature. Now there's also a statement that potentially supports Yuno as being the reincarnated child of Licht and Tetya. Elf Yuno is fighting Licht and is actually strong enough to make Licht react to him. Raya is surprised that Yuno was strong enough to do that, but then says, "I would expect no less from Lix," and then he leaves it there. And there was an apostrophe when he said Lix, so that was meaning something of Lix. The finish isn't a sentence, but it seems obvious that he would be the son of Licht based on that statement and everything else. Only Licht's son should be able to compete with Licht in power like that. There's more to talk about in this battle, but I'll get back to that later. Now it's time to talk about the possibility that Asta is also a child of Licht and Tetya. Now outside of looks, there's only one thing that we can really talk about for similarities, and that is Asta literally has the same grimoire his father has. Yes, Asta's grimoire used to be Licht's 4-leaf clover grimoire. It was a sword magic grimoire, but when Licht did the forbidden magic and became a demon, his grimoire was somehow corrupted to become a 5-leaf clover grimoire with the devil inside of it. Now that we have that out of the way, the really only outside comparison, let's compare the looks of Asta, Licht, Tetya, and the first Wizard King. The most obvious comparison is the hair of Asta. Not a lot of people have that whitish gray hair like Asta and Black Clover, but Licht does, and the elves. So inheriting his father's hair color, that's a similarity. We also know that both Tetya and the first Wizard King have green eyes. It's literally the exact same eye color of Asta, and also has a pointy chin like all of these family members. Now whereas Yuno seemingly would have inherited his father's height, Asta seems to have inherited his mother's genetics when it came to height, as Asta has a nickname, Shortsta. Asta is short, Tetya is short, the first Wizard King is short. Now, it isn't hard to believe that a couple that looked like this could create children like this in the separate scenarios. Now on the next part of the theory, who is the son of Licht and Tetya? Is it Yuno or Asta? Well, in my opinion, it's both. Since Tetya had never had a child, they wouldn't know if it was just twins or a single child. My theory is that both Yuno and Asta are twins. Obviously, not identical twins, but fraternal twins. This means they are just like regular siblings. They were just born on the same day from the same mother and father. When the reincarnation magic was done years later, Asta and Yuno would be born to parents who then gave up the responsibility to the orphanage at the church. Yuno is a successful version of a hybrid of a human and elf. Natural talent, extremely high mana, and more. Meanwhile, Asta is the downside of cross-species reproduction. Remember, elves are humanoid and human-like, but they are not humans. They are a different species, so it isn't surprising that species mixing could cause some problems. These problems led to a potential failure in Asta, a mage born with 0 mana. Remember, the Witch Queen said it was a mutation that caused him to have 0 mana back in the Witch's Forest arc. What if this mutation is from the cross-species reproduction of elves and humans? So, Asta and Yuno can look like Licht without technically being the 100% son of Licht. They are the reincarnations of the sons of Licht, as every human that has been possessed by an elf looked exactly like the elf that possessed them. If you look at them, they look slightly different. Besides that, you can tell who is the elf. And it's possible for a brother and sister to be reincarnated because it's happened with Gauche and Marie's elf, as well as Charlotte and Lux elves. Now this brings the question of how would the reincarnation magic work on Yuno, but not Asta? As when the elves bring their plan to fruition and commit the resurrection, Asta doesn't get an elf in his body, while Yuno does. Well, this can be explained that technically, the spell that Licht used and the one Patri used are 2 different spells, meaning the first spell, which simply makes people with similar bodies, names, and everything else come to live centuries later. But Patri's actually has to do with the possession of the body. Asta having no mana could ruffle some feathers with that spell being able to take him over. Now what happens when the resurrection occurs, Yuno becomes possessed by an elven soul and remains dormant. He remains dormant until Asta yells that he's going to become the Wizard King. This wakes Yuno up and he fights alongside Asta. Now it's important to remember that both Asta and Yuno were not even born yet when Tetya was killed, which makes you wonder, how would the spirit thing even work? Putting the mind of a fetus inside the mind of a 16-year-old boy. So there it seems the reason that the mind of the fetus was inside of Yuno, and that is why he was able to break out of it. Yuno says there is another soul inside of him, but They could have just been morphed together because, technically, they're the same people. Yuno and Asta were the result of a blood pact between two kingdoms, symbols of peace. In this scenario, the elves are the attackers, and Yuno could just be trying to make peace. When we see Asta and Yuno fight Licht, he isn't even trying that hard, and is doing very, very well against both of them. It seems as if he's holding back though, because he knew they were his sons. When he speed blitzed Asta, why wouldn't he attack him with his sword? He could have easily killed Asta right there. But instead, he steals the Demon Dweller sword, which he still could have stolen from Asta if he had just killed him. This is especially present in the end, when Licht shoots his beam at Asta and Yuno, which causes them to shoot out of the secret base to escape. Why wouldn't he kill Asta when it seems he could have? Now, all that we know is that the elves are going to do the full resurrection spell soon. They'll remove the human element from their body and make the reincarnation permanent. Yuno was the last person they need, and someone was sent to go bring him in. I wonder who that someone is. But something that is important to note here is that nearly every time the Eye of the Midnight Sun are encountered in Black Clover, Yuno was not there. When Asta faces Heath, Yuno wasn't there. Patri and the Third Eye, Yuno wasn't there. Yuno wasn't there for any of the fights with the Third Eye members either. The only time that Yuno was present during one of these attacks was when the Eye of the Midnight Sun attacked the capital. Yuno was never hurt during these attacks either. Now if you say, well, Yuno was never hurt by the Eye of the Midnight Sun, but Asta was, therefore your theory doesn't make sense. The elves only know of one child of Licht to be reincarnated. They wouldn't know of a twin. Figuring Yuno, seeing Yuno, that he looks like the son of Licht, has wind magic of Tetsuya, the wind spirit of Tetsuya, the four-leaf clover Guamar, and the natural talent and mana, they would assume that he'd be Licht's son, not Asta. Also figuring that Yuno had the magic stone as well. A kid with no mana though, like Asta, they probably wouldn't dare believe that Licht could ever bear a child of such low power. But anyways guys, that's my theory. I think that Asta and Yuno were the unborn sons of Tetsuya and Licht. When Licht did his reincarnation magic, their bodies were bred through humans hundreds of years later, and when Elf Yuno got possessed, there is nothing to possess him because that was a newborn. Not even a newborn, that was a fetus, it wasn't even born yet. How is that going to take over? So Yuno stays himself, the reincarnation does not work on Asta because he has no mana. That's my theory guys. There's probably holes here, I tried to find some, but let me know the holes of this. Let me know if you agree or disagree. Now, I've always wanted Asta to just be a not special person. I didn't want him to have any special lineage, just that he got abandoned at the church. But this is a way to explain it all, and he still could be not special. The fact that he's a failed experiment between cross-species hybridization. So I just hope that they don't say, oh, because he's half elf and half human, that's why he's such physically strong. I prefer that he got physically strong because of his hard work, not because of his lineage. But anyways guys, please do leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Hope you guys did enjoy this video, and also turn on notifications to be notified every time I upload a Black Clover video. Hope you guys all have an amazing day. Plus...